Belgium is a country built on cycling legends. Children there learn the names of brutal cobbled climbs before they learn basic geography. The nation expects its champions to emerge young, growing through a system designed to shape riders from childhood into professionals. But the next Belgian superstar didn't follow any of those rules. At 17, Remco Evenepoel wasn't racing bikes. He wasn't dreaming of the Tour. He wasn't training on narrow farm roads with junior clubs. He was a football player, talented, driven, and aiming for a professional career on the pitch. Cycling wasn't on his radar at all. Then everything changed. In the space of just 2 years, he went from complete beginner to double world champion. He rose so fast that people questioned whether what they were seeing was real. And then, just as suddenly, he nearly lost everything in one of the most shocking crashes the sport has seen in years. But what followed, the recovery, the reinvention, and the return, revealed the version of Remco Evenepoel that would redefine his future. This is the story of a latecomer who didn't just catch up. He rewrote the rules of what rising to the top can look like. Belgium's connection to cycling is woven into daily life. On Sundays, families gather along damp village roads to watch local riders push through wind and rain. In small cafes, conversations drift naturally toward past races, legendary climbs, and unforgettable attacks. The country lives the sport with a devotion that makes cycling feel like a shared heritage rather than a pastime. Because of this, Belgium produces cyclists early. Children join clubs when they're barely old enough to shift gears. They learn race etiquette, positioning, and discipline through small local circuits. The progression is predictable: a decade of structured training, then a slow rise through regional and national levels. Very few succeed, but everyone knows the recipe. Remco Evenepoel was an exception, not because he stood out within this system, but because he wasn't in it at all. While thousands of young Belgians grew up dreaming of cycling glory, Remco spent his childhood focused on something entirely different. He wasn't memorizing gradients or idolizing national heroes. He wasn't shaping his body for endurance or learning the subtleties of drafting. His energy belonged to another sport entirely, one that seemed destined to define his future. Belgium was preparing its next great cyclist, but he was preparing for something else. Before cycling even entered his life, Remco was fully committed to football. He trained with Anderlecht, one of Belgium's top academies, before earning a move to PSV Eindhoven, an achievement reserved for the most promising young talents.
And I started straight on in Anderlecht, in my eyes the best team in Belgium. Then I did 7 years there, and then I left to a club in Holland.
He also represented Belgium's youth national teams, wearing the red jersey with pride. What set him apart wasn't extraordinary technical skill, but an engine unlike anything coaches typically see in a teenager. He covered more ground than entire midfield lines. His endurance was exceptional. He pressed endlessly, recovered quickly, and played with an intensity most players struggle to match. The path ahead seemed clear: continue improving, earn a professional contract, and build a career on the pitch. Cycling wasn't part of the equation. Nobody imagined he would compete in another sport, let alone dominate one he had barely touched. But talent doesn't always follow a straight line. Late in his youth career, Remco's form dipped. His rhythm faltered. The small edge that once separated him from others began to fade. Scouts noticed, coaches noticed, and eventually the national team decided he no longer fit into their long-term plans. Being cut shook him deeply. Football had been his routine, identity, and direction. Losing that future felt like losing a part of himself. He didn't know it at the time, but that disappointment would become the turning point of his entire life. Leaving the national youth setup felt like a door closing. For years, football had structured Remco's days and shaped his goals. Suddenly, that structure dissolved matches, training sessions, team dynamics, all of it faded quickly, leaving him suspended between past ambition and an unclear future. He tried to stay active, partly out of habit and partly because stopping completely didn't feel right. He still had the same restless energy, the same drive to push his body, even if he no longer had a sport to channel it into. And in this uncertain period, he made a simple choice.
Out of nowhere, I just lost my passion and the love for football, and I wanted to stop completely with that and try to do something different. In the end, I chose for cycling, and I'm happy. that I did.
He grabbed an old bike from home and headed out for a ride. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't the beginning of a new dream. It was just exercise, a way to move, to breathe, and to clear his thoughts. But something interesting happened. The effort felt strangely natural. His stamina translated perfectly. He pushed harder, and the bike responded. He explored longer distances, and his body handled them easily. He didn't realize it yet, but this was the moment everything shifted. With no pressure, no expectations, and no audience, Remco stumbled into a world where his physical gifts suddenly made perfect sense. The collapse of one dream had opened space for something else, something he hadn't been looking for, but was already waiting for him. That first ride led to another, and then another. The more time Remco spent on the bike, the clearer it became that this wasn't normal beginner progress. He rode far longer than typical newcomers. He maintained high speeds instinctively. His cadence flowed naturally. His breathing stayed shockingly steady. What started as a way to stay fit turned into an unexpected discovery. He was built for endurance in a way he had never recognized. He entered a small local race simply to feel competitive again. What happened next surprised everyone. Without formal training, without race experience, he broke away and won by minutes. People watching didn't know who he was. They assumed he'd been a cyclist for years. Coaches, hearing about the performance, analyzed his early data. The numbers didn't match the profile of a beginner. They matched someone already operating at a national level. His physiology, honed from years of football intensity, turned out to be perfect for cycling. This wasn't gradual development, it was sudden alignment. His body, mindset, and competitive instinct fitting together around a new sport almost instantly. Remco didn't plan to become a cyclist. He didn't even know he had the potential, but the bike revealed something that football never fully used, a deeper reservoir of endurance and a natural rhythm that made him feel at home in a way he hadn't expected. The sport he hadn't sought out had quietly chosen him. Once he committed to cycling fully, progress became astonishingly fast. Within a year, Remco went from local races to the highest levels of junior competition. His racing style was raw but overwhelming. He didn't wait, didn't hide, and didn't fear early attacks. He simply pushed until the others broke. The 2018 season showcased just how unusual his talent was. He won race after race, often riding away solo from distances most riders would never attempt, margins of victory stretched into minutes. Crowds and commentators began searching for explanations. How could someone so new be this strong? At the European Championships, he won the time trial convincingly. Then, in the road race, he launched a long solo attack that left the entire field behind. He crossed the line alone, barely celebrating, as if this dominance felt natural rather than shocking. But the World Championships elevated him into global attention. He won both the time trial and the road race, something almost unheard of at the junior level. These victories weren't close, they were crushing. Belgium had been waiting decades for the next superstar. Suddenly, a teenager who didn't even know he'd become a cyclist just 2 years earlier was being compared to Eddy Merckx. It didn't make sense, but that only made the story more compelling. A new talent had arrived, and he had skipped every step the sport expected him to take. In Belgium, success brings celebration, but it also brings pressure. As Remco's rise continued, the spotlight intensified rapidly. Media outlets praised him a bit too loudly and too quickly. Comparisons to Merckx surfaced before he had even turned professional, placing an enormous weight on his young shoulders. Every interview, every race, every training update became a headline. Supporters admired his confidence, his bold racing style, and his fearlessness. Critics questioned whether he was too outspoken, too aggressive, or too inexperienced to handle such rapid fame. Belgium is a small country with a big cycling culture. That combination creates an environment where athletes are adored and scrutinized simultaneously. Remco was still learning the basics of high-level racing, yet he was treated like a national symbol, someone expected not just to win, but to carry the future of Belgian cycling. And the more he achieved, the more intense the expectations became. People weren't asking if he could win, they were asking when. Every setback was magnified, every decision analyzed. The world watched his every move, waiting to see if his meteoric rise would continue without interruption. But pressure has a way of exposing vulnerabilities, especially in athletes still learning their craft. And Remco was about to encounter the hardest moment of his career, one that would challenge everything he had built and threaten to reshape his future entirely. It happened on a descent in Italy. One mistake, one impact, one fall that changed everything.
Voor zo lijkbleek te zien, denk ik, dat kunnen niet spelen. Hè. Dat is Ja, lijkt bleek, zeg je, welke indruk gaf hij toen hij hier neerzat?
Dat hij echt veel pijn had. Dat, je zag zo zijn gezicht, dat hij echt pijn had.
Il Lombardia is beautiful but unforgiving. Its climbs reward strength, but its descents demand precision. Among them is the Sormano, a twisting, narrow road with almost no margin for error. During the 2020 edition, Remco approached the descent near the front of the favourites. He was focused, alert, and in position. But entering a tight corner, he misjudged the line. The bike drifted wide. He clipped the low wall, and in a split second he was launched over the barrier. He disappeared into a ravine. The silence that followed was chilling. Riders continued down the road, unaware. Cameras rushed to the scene, showing Remco lying motionless near a cluster of rocks. His helmet cracked, his breathing shallow, he couldn't move. The images shook the cycling world. He was transported to a hospital with a fractured pelvis, lung contusions, and severe bruising. The physical damage alone threatened months, perhaps years, of recovery. Then came the controversy. Footage showed a team staff member reaching into Remco's pocket moments after the fall. What they removed was harmless, an earpiece, but speculation exploded online. Instead of sympathy, Remco found himself at the center of rumors and accusations while he lay in a hospital bed. The crash didn't just interrupt his rise, it shattered its momentum. For the first time, the young superstar was not being celebrated or criticized for racing decisions. He was simply vulnerable, injured, and uncertain. The fall from the Sormano wasn't just physical. It marked the first time Remco's future felt truly fragile. Recovery began slowly. A fractured pelvis affects every movement, walking, standing, balancing, even breathing deeply. Remco spent months rebuilding strength through tedious exercises, routine medical evaluations, and long periods of waiting. The body that once felt unstoppable now felt unpredictable. When he finally returned to racing, the struggles were immediate. His rhythm was off, climbs felt heavier. His position looked uncomfortable. He lacked the sharpness that had defined his rise. Races he once dominated now left him exhausted. Critics reacted quickly. In Belgium, patience is rare. Some questioned whether he had been pushed too fast early in his career. Others wondered if the crash had permanently changed him. The voices grew louder, and for the first time, Remco seemed uncertain of his place. But beneath the frustration, something important was happening. He began to understand the sport more deeply. He learned to listen to his coaches, his teammates, and his own instincts. He studied the details he used to overlook. He became more aware of race dynamics, pacing, and strategy. The lost year became a different kind of development, one defined not by victories, but by learning how to handle adversity. It was not glamorous, but it was essential. Meteoric rises rarely teach patience. Crashes do. Slowly, he realized he didn't need to chase the rider he had been before. He needed to build a better one. Reinvention began quietly. Remco and his coaches reworked everything: his position on the bike, his training structure, his climbing technique, and even his mental approach to racing. It wasn't about reclaiming past dominance. It was about creating a more complete version of himself. He learned when to conserve energy and when to commit fully. He refined his time trial pacing, practiced riding efficiently in groups, and worked on climbing with smoother, more controlled cadence. He listened more, planned more, understood more. The raw explosiveness that once carried him through races was still there, but now it was guided by discipline. His attacks became less spontaneous and more strategic. He no longer relied solely on his natural engine. He layered experience on top of talent. Mentally, he embraced a broader perspective. The crash had shattered his sense of invulnerability. The recovery taught him humility, and the difficult races that followed taught him resilience, how to keep going when nothing feels easy. By the time the 2022 season approached, Remco wasn't trying to resurrect the prodigy who had burst onto the scene. He was shaping a version of himself capable of lasting at the highest level. He was no longer the rider the world once expected him to be. He was becoming the rider he needed to be. Entering 2022, Remco carried a quiet confidence. Not the bold certainty of his early rise, but a mature understanding that he had rebuilt himself piece by piece. And soon, the results would reveal the strength of that transformation. Liège-Bastogne-Liège became his first major statement. It is a monument known for its brutality, long climbs, endless attrition, and decisive moments shaped by strategy rather than chaos. When Remco launched his attack on the Côte de la Redoute, it was precise and perfectly timed. He didn't look frantic or desperate. He looked in control. The gap grew steadily until he crossed the finish line alone, announcing his return without a single word. Later that season came his greatest test, the Vuelta a España. Over 3 demanding weeks, Remco displayed something even more impressive than raw power: consistency. He defended the leader's jersey with calm composure, managing climbs, time trials, and pressure with the maturity of a veteran. When he arrived in Madrid wearing red, he became Belgium's first Grand Tour winner in over 40 years. He closed the year by winning the World Championship time trial, completing the arc from injury to dominance. 2022 was not about revenge against critics. It wasn't about proving he could recover. It was about proving he could evolve. Standing at the top of modern cycling means standing beside riders who are redefining the sport. For Remco Evenepoel, the coming years are shaped not just by his talent, but by the rivals he will face time and time again. Tadej Pogačar represents instinct and versatility. He attacks when others hesitate and wins across terrains that used to require specialists. Competing with him demands not just strength, but creativity. Jonas Vingegaard brings a colder, more calculated challenge. His climbing precision and relentless pacing make him one of the hardest riders to break in the mountains. Facing Jonas requires patience and discipline. Primož Roglič adds experience, someone who knows how to navigate pressure and strike in decisive moments. Racing against him sharpens tactical awareness and resilience. And then there is Wout van Aert, not a direct rival in style, but a parallel presence in Belgian cycling. Their careers unfold side by side, constantly compared by media and fans. Each victory or setback is measured against the other, even if the two riders rarely overlap in goals. These rivalries don't threaten Remco's path, they define its magnitude. Great cyclists are remembered not just for their victories, but for the opponents who forced them to rise. For Remco, the battles ahead will shape how this era of cycling is remembered, and where his place within it will ultimately stand. Looking at Remco Evenepoel's journey, it's easy to focus on how quickly everything happened. The late start, the rapid rise, the victories that arrived before experience. But the deeper truth is that his career has never been about speed, it has been about timing. He didn't follow Belgium's cycling traditions. He didn't spend childhood riding through rain or dreaming of monuments. Instead, he built his engine on football pitches. His resilience came from disappointment. His transformation came from a crash that forced him to grow in ways talent alone never requires. The year after his fall wasn't glamorous, but it reshaped him. It taught him the value of patience, the importance of strategy, and the quiet strength found in rebuilding. By the time he returned to the top, he wasn't the prodigy who shocked the world. He was something deeper, an athlete who had rebuilt his identity with intention and maturity. As he stands today, Remco is no longer defined by his late start or his rapid rise. He is defined by how he has responded to every turn, every setback, and every challenge. Surrounded by rivals who will shape an entire generation, he now steps into a future that demands everything he has learned. He didn't begin early. He didn't follow the script. He didn't rise the way Belgian cycling expected. But for the athlete he has become and the battles still ahead, he arrived exactly when he needed to. If you like these stories, make sure to follow Stridelore to help us grow the channel. Like, subscribe, and share.